Morning, everyone. I'll do that one more time. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. That's better, thank you. I'm Scott Carruthers from the Ceramic Tile Education Foundation, here to be on an early start for the last day of the show. So thank you for making your efforts to get in here. We're going to talk today with, my colleague of esteem.
Okay, well, my name's Rob Roderick. I'm with the National Tile Contractors Association. I think I've met most of you guys, and like Scott said, today we're going to talk about vertical substrate prep and some of the options and ways that we can make sure that we have a really flat surface. We always teach and train from the industry standards and guidelines found in the Tile Council North America Handbook and in ANSI. And in previous demonstrations, we looked at how to check those substrates and use a straight edge in order to do that. Now we're going to move on to how do we fix them once we find a problem. So the two standards, just to remind you from our last episodes, there's two major standards that we want all of you guys to remember. One of them is for large format tile, and that's any tile that has one side that's 15 inches or larger. We should have no deviation in that surface of more than 1/8 of an inch in a 10-foot radius. And when I say deviation, that means a hump or a dip. And the other standard is basically all the tiles that are smaller than that. And we shouldn't have more than 1/4 of an inch in 10 foot. So what that pretty much tells us is everywhere that we're going to put tile, it's going to need some type of prep. We're going to need to do some type of work to get that surface to those standards to install tile.
So it's got to be flat. So straight edges, we have a stud wall here. If it was a concrete wall, we're going to do that next. But we're going to take our straight edge, determine what we have, and we look at the top of this, and we're about 1/32 of an inch, so we can use a drywall shim, or we've cut these out of paper here. So we'll check this. And Rob, can you hand me one more?
Yeah, here's another one. So how many of you guys install concrete board yourself? All right, some of you do. So when we show up, of course, the framing, we want to check it with the straight edge like he's using here. And before we put that board up, we want to make as much corrections as we can. So they do make cardboard shims or drywall shims that you can put in here in different thicknesses and change the amount. If it's basically 1/4 inch down here and 1/8 of an inch up here, you can use that paper and feather that out.
And you can use anything here that's going to build you out. You may use something like a masonite product that would be 1/8 of an inch thick if you've got something that's that bad. Anything you can use that's a solid product that we can also fasten through is just a temporary build out. So when we put our final panel on there, we have a nice flat plane. As Rob said, for especially large format tile, we're at 15 inches or larger in size of our tile. So we want to check this out and see. Now we're looking nice and flat there. So now we can come down here, and Rob, let's see where we are here. And at this point, we need another piece.
Need another piece, yeah.
So we see this is getting deeper, so we can just add this piece right here. Don't have enough hands.
This is a trust exercise right here. You see how close this stapler is to his finger?
So we can continue just working this straight down. Let's see how we are here, Rob. We're right on the money. So then we staple that one. And for the sake of time, we're not going to continue that, but does everybody get the idea? So what we also want to do is check it this way, because you don't want to make it this way and then have a bow in the middle of the surface here. So we want to check top normally and check bottom, and then work top to bottom with your straight edge, and then fill accordingly so you get that flat plane, so that when we put our panel on, we have a nice flat surface rather than a bow in the wall. And ideally, we want to fix this first before the panel goes on, whether it's a cement board, a fiber cement board, or a foam board, before it's fixed. Because all the manufacturers, especially if we're putting a membrane on here, you want your repair behind the wall, not on top of the wall, if possible. And here, this is a concrete wall. We have to put our patch or render on top of it to build it out. So, Rob, anything else we want to talk about here?
Yeah, okay, so basically that's one way that we can fix this. And back before the price of 2x4s skyrocketed, this is a really good option. If we've got one stud that's further back, let's say 1/4 of an inch, a really fast way to fix that is basically just to cut another 2x4 to replace it and sister it to the 2x4 that's set back. So I think, let's look here. Yeah, this one's set back pretty far, so we can take our straight edge on here. If you can imagine, this is all we can afford is about 1.5 feet of 2x4. I don't know if you guys have been buying those lately, but you're gonna have to just use your imagination that the rest of this is full length.
We actually had a guard here overnight to keep an eye on this.
Yeah, we usually keep it locked up. But basically, he's just gonna slide that 2x4 out to where the straight edge is gonna hit. Now he can sister this new stud in, and does the same process as this cardboard shimming, but it's quite a bit quicker.
And of course, this would be full length, so we'd run top to bottom.
So that kind of addresses when the studs are set back, but sometimes there'll just be one stud that's sticking a little bit further out. How many of you guys have used a planer on those before? Has anybody used a planer? Well, that's a great way to get a really flat surface, but what we really want you to know is it's our responsibility to check that substrate and then let the people know that it needs to be corrected, or allow us to correct it and get paid to do that.
How many people here do their own corrective work? How many people will allow somebody else to do it for you? That's an excellent answer. We do our job better, so we want to handle our ultimate outcome rather than have somebody come in there and build a hump in the wall or still have a belly in the wall. We're going to have to fix it anyway. I want to get paid for it up front. I'm going to make sure it's right before my guys are in here to set tile on top of it. So it's really crucial that we get that nice and flat at the very beginning.
Yeah. But oftentimes when we show up on a job, they've already got the board put up. We've already got some issues, but it's the same process of checking that surface before you put tile on it. So if we come over here and look at this wall, there's some places that we've got some dips in it, mainly right down the middle, this area right here. And so what I can do is I can just take a pen, if I have one, and mark that. I think I got one right here. Just mark the areas that we're wanting to float. I'm just looking for where is my straight edge hitting?
Right there. And clear at the edge.
Okay, bring it down. Pretty much the whole way. Let's see here.
Well, it's getting smaller anyway.
Yeah, it's getting smaller here.
And we're almost out of it. Okay.
So basically, we see we've got a dip that comes down in a V shape here. And to prepare these walls, you know, a lot of guys will want to use thin set, but thin set's not really designed to be used in that way. It's designed to be used in a uniform thickness across the floor, and we don't want to use it to fix or prepare walls or floors because it has a tendency to shrink. And you can also go past the manufacturer's recommendation of thickness of that mortar as well. If you render a wall with thin set and then you come back and install with thin set, before long you could be well beyond the manufacturer's recommendations and be out of warranty. So we want to use the right products. What we have here is a cementitious patch, and we're going to mix it. Also, how many of you guys have seen this device? Okay, this is called a dust hog, and basically it's going to collect the dust whenever we start mixing. We also have a HEPA vac here, and you know, September of 2017, OSHA got involved with the silica dust rules. You know, silica dust, if we breathe it, it can create scar tissue in our lungs and create some of the same symptoms that COPD and emphysema give you. So we want to protect ourselves, we want to protect our lungs, and we want to protect our pocketbook. So we want to make sure, because OSHA is handing out some pretty big fines with this silica dust thing since September. But this is a setup kind of setup that a person needs. It's a HEPA vac. It's 99.9% efficient, and it also has a knocker unit in it. So when we turn this on, the way it's set up, as soon as we pull the trigger on the drill, the vacuum is going to automatically come on, and you're going to hear a knocking sound. It's going to sound like, man, that thing is getting ready to come apart. But actually what's going on is it's just cleaning that filter. It's just knocking that filter as it goes.
Otherwise, the fine dust is going to clog that filter really quickly. So the knocker in there is actually knocking that dust loose and lets it fall down into the drum, get a lot more life out of your filter. So Rob, how about you running that? And I'm going to What about this wall? It seems pretty dry, doesn't it? How about that wall? Seems pretty dry.
Yeah, we probably need to give that a little bit of a drink.
Probably give it a drink.
Yeah.
If we don't hydrate, and we talked about this yesterday, it's saturated surface dry. So we want to get moisture into that substrate, whether it's concrete, backer board, or whatever, most backer boards. If we don't give it a drink, where's it going to get its drink? Out of our patch or our self-leveler, depending on what we're doing. So we want to give that a drink first so that it's pulling that water out of the sponge, not out of the mix. So I'm going to do this while Rob's going to mix that. It's going to be a little noisy for a minute, but we'll be set to go. Do you want me to pour? Or let's do that. I'll work with you on that.
Yeah, we'll measure our water.
We've already had our water measured. I've held back a little bit of water.
Oh, you got it measured. Okay.
Because the water for this is somewhere between 3.5 and 3.32 quarts of water. So I've held back a little bit of the water to see what this mix is, because if we go to the full end of 3.5, it might be a little bit loose on a wall surface. Work great on a floor, but gravity's not our friend on this case. So I've held a little water back. If we need it, we'll use it.
Yeah, I tell you what, guys, these products, they're like super engineered nowadays. Lots of chemistry going into them. Because of that, we always want to measure the amount of water to get the best performance out of every product we use. All right, are you ready?
Well, my transmission's not going.
Gotta turn that knob there. There you go. Slow it down a little later. Slow it down. There we go. That looks pretty good to me. So we're within the range of the manufacturers.
And the beauty of this system is when you pull the trigger on the mixer, this automatically turns on. I let go, it turns off within about 15 seconds. So there's not a matter of running two switches or two cords. We can run this all at one time, and it's just a really great operation.
Let's move that this way, Scott. Or, yeah, let's move it back in this corner. That way I got a little bit of room to work here. All right, so
I'm going to get the drink going, so.
All right, we're going to kind of connect our dots here, showing where we're going to go with this. I think it's right there.
Do you have any gloves? Gloves.
Whoa. Well, the framing on this is questionable. You know what? When you push it on the wall.
What, do we have a movable wall there,
Yeah,
Rob?
we do.
Maybe I better give you some help on that.
Yeah, maybe move that over just a little. I'm too aggressive with it. I'm used to this thing's being nailed to something. So I'm just going to burn this into the surface, kind of get it started. And I'm going to come back and...
Is that a really critical step?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So if I don't key it in, I don't have a good bond?
That's exactly right, yeah. So you hear that scratching noise, that's just keying or burning in that material before I actually start putting some out there, a real amount.
So once Rob has keyed this in, we really just want to get material on the wall and build it up. Then we'll take our straight edge and strike it off so that we get a nice flat plane. A lot of guys like to look at this and they want to play with it. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just needs to be flat. So once Rob gets that loaded up, keyed in and loaded up, then we'll come up here and take our straight edge and we'll strike this off to get a nice flat plane. Actually, what we need is Vanna White here to hold the wall while he's working.
Okay, so I got my material in there. Let's see, let's use this straight edge here. I really like an L-type straight edge, like you'd float wall mud. That's ideal for a situation like this. And I already know where I'm at. I'm just going to take this and clean off the material. Now, I'm staying in touch with the edge of this straight edge. I'm making sure there's no holes. I'm making sure it's full of material. I can bring it to there and I can see, hey, I need to put some more material on the wall. So it really takes, it's like floating mud. It takes too much to have enough. You just got to put a little bit more material than you need. So as you're striking it off, you're just picking up that excess material as you go. See, I see one spot right there. A little bit low. Right here. And this stuff dries quick too, boy. You gotta think ahead and have everything marked out and ready to go. One little spot right there. So basically what I just did there, guys, is I'm moving this up. I'm looking at the edge of that straight edge. And as I looked along, I see, hey, there's a little gap right here. A little low spot in the wall. I'm just gonna add more material there, then come back and strike it off.
One thing about these patch materials, they're engineered to set up quickly so that we can get right back on it and start setting tile. So it has a sort of a mind of its own. If you don't work quickly enough, this will work faster for you. So you got to keep on moving to make sure that you get a nice flat plane before it sets off.
I can feel it going in the bucket there a little bit. I was shooting for not a drop on the floor, but I just got my first drop.
I see that.
Okay. I think that's going to be enough right there. I'm going to give a little bit more.
I think you may want to pass right here and through the middle.
Oh, there goes drop number 2.
And what you want to be careful of, since we took the time to mark the perimeter edges where we're at our high spot, you don't want to trowel anything out here because it's just building that up further, which makes the center even deeper. So we just want to get enough patch on there to flatten this out. I think we're just about there, Rob.
Yep. So at this point we can smooth it up a little bit if we want, but we don't have to. That surface texture that's on there, that's fine. I better hit down here. It looks like one little spot here. That's what I'm talking about, right there.
Take that high spot off, and we're looking pretty good.
Yep.
If you see a spot like this right here, you're going to say, well, that needs to be filled in. We could fill that with a little bit of thin set, still be within the requirement of the manufacturer for the thickness of our thin set mortar, or if we're using a large and heavy tile mortar, we get a little deeper thickness allowance, but that's really all we do. We don't have to make that look pretty, it just has to be flat.
Yep, that's right. So our responsibility when we show up, if we see any visual defects, we see those humps and dips, we need to report those to the right people. You know, one thing that we oftentimes did was we would send out in proposals in our estimates disclaimers that say all surfaces to receive tile must meet the TCA standard of no deviation of more than 1/4 of an inch and 10 foot, or additional prep will be required. That's not reflected in this estimate. You know, and that's a better way to approach the prep problem of getting paid for it, because it's not necessarily your standard and it's not my standard, that's the industry standard that you're quoting to them. And sometimes that can be effective and help you get paid for this kind of work that needs to be done.
Absolutely. Anybody have any questions? It's either too early or we did a really good job.
Question. Wet shimming, well, it's not addressed in our industry standards in ANSI or in the TCA. There are some manufacturers that do approve that, and if you're working with their products, you might fall underneath their warranties. But one thing that we always want people to have, if you can get it, is a method from the TCA handbook and a manufacturer's. That's like a bulletproof installation. So if you've got a TCA method and a manufacturer behind it, first off, you're not going to have a failure. And if you did by chance have a failure, you're covered and there's very, very little liability. But some manufacturers do allow that with their product, but you need to work closely with them and make sure you follow their directions. And you only have one of those two pieces. You don't have necessarily any standards to support you. So there's a little bit more liability than if you had both the standards and a manufacturer. But that's a great question about wet shimming. So does everybody know what wet shimming is? Basically putting thin set behind the board on the wall.
Putting it on the stud and then putting the panel in place.
Yeah.
And then taking a straight edge with a level to get it plumb. Put it, and you tap it into place, and you can fasten the top or the bottom, but you've got to let it set up before if you run your screw right away, you're going to of course drive all that mortar out from between there. But again, you want to make sure you're following the guidelines of the manufacturer of the mortar that you're using, if they will allow you to do that.
Yeah. Well, guys, our time is up. You've been a great audience. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Timmy, do you have something to give away?